I answered the phone in Fenya, out of instinct, not strategy. 10 seconds later, the Bratva boss was on his feet, staring at me like I'd just come back from the dead. Then he said it. Protect her. With your life. Like mafia stories with twists. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. This one's just beginning, and trust me, it won't end the way you expected. The security scanner gave a soft beep as I stepped into the ballroom, and just like that, the air shifted. Not because of me, because of him. Kazimir Volkov sat at the head of a long, shadow-drenched table, flanked by men in brioni suits and dead eyes. One of them, sharp-featured, with a scar beneath his left eye, watched me enter. Not with curiosity, with calculation. Kazimir didn't introduce him, didn't even look his way. But I felt the tension, like two wolves circling the same kill. The moment I walked in, one of those eyes tracked my badge, then my face. I adjusted the lanyard clipped to my belt, my interpreter ID catching the light, like a shield. I shouldn't have been nervous. I'd prepped for weeks, knew the deal inside and out, and I'd been in rooms with worse men. But not him. Not a man whose name bent laws and carved fear into marble. I was a translator, neutral, precise, invisible. At least, that's what I was paid to be. No one cared where I came from. How I got fluent in 3 dialects the Russian Federation considered inadmissible. Or how I could tell a Tula accent from a Vologda one in a heartbeat. That was the point. Keep your head down. Don't ask questions. Translate and walk away. This wasn't my first private negotiation, but it was the first where the people in the room weren't just discussing numbers. They were discussing power, territory, silence. You felt it in the air, thick, metallic, like blood before it stains, and I was just here to translate. I wasn't even supposed to be there tonight. Another interpreter, Anya, had taken the assignment. Native Russian, big resume, better heels. But she'd cancelled last minute, no reason given. The agency had panicked, and I was the only one available with clearance to enter a room like this. The kind of room where no one asked names, only whose orders you followed. I should have said no. Instead, I put on the black blouse, clipped on my badge, and stepped into the lion's mouth. Kazimir didn't speak when I walked in. He didn't need to. His presence wrapped the room in stillness. Sharp-cut suit, full-sleeve tattoos half hidden by his cufflinks, and that unnerving calm. A man who didn't blink unless it meant something. When the meeting started, I stood behind the seated delegates, quiet, professional. Just a conduit for words, not part of the conversation. That worked. Until my phone buzzed. I stepped outside, pressed the phone to my ear. It was a friend, and an old contact from back home in Chicago. Trouble. Urgent. I answered automatically. Что случилось, брат? Not in English. Not in Russian. But in Fenya. The coded criminal slang used by prison networks and underworld rings across the former Soviet bloc. The call ended quickly. I turned to head back in, and froze. Kazimir was already standing, his bodyguards at alert. His eyes pinned me. Then he said it. Protect her with your life. Wait, why would the Bratva boss say that to his men? Something's not adding up. At first, I thought I misheard. Maybe he was talking about someone else, but 2 guards flanked me seconds later. One extended a phone. Another handed me a keycard. You'll stay in a secure location tonight, one said, for your safety. What safety? I asked. They didn't answer. The man with the scar, the one who'd watched me earlier, stepped forward. Leonid, he said like I should already know. You're coming with me. Why me? I whispered. Leonid's gaze didn't soften. Because you spoke a language you weren't supposed to know. By morning, I wasn't in Manhattan anymore. I was strapped into a leather seat on a private jet. Destination? Moscow. The man across from me didn't speak until we landed. Kazimir Volkov had summoned me, not just as an interpreter, but for a reason he wouldn't explain. Not yet. The estate looked like something out of a European thriller. Stone walls, black gates, and silence that rang louder than gunshots. A room had been prepared for me, clothes in my size, a vanity with my skin tone foundation, a hair wrap like the one I wore to sleep, books I'd underlined in college. No one should have known these things. And yet, they did. The woman who escorted me left without a word. No orders. No explanation, just, he'll see you when he's ready. I didn't wait. I wondered. Eventually, I found him. He was in a glass-enclosed garden behind the estate. Snow drifted against the walls, but inside it was warm, humid, alive. Kazimir stood beneath a dead tree, pruning it bare. No guards, no coat, just stillness. He didn't look surprised to see me. Miss Amarchen, he said. His voice wasn't sharp this time. It rolled low, like distant thunder. I stayed by the entrance. You had that photo, I said. I did. You knew me. He declipped another branch, then looked at me. Really looked. You don't just speak Fenya, he said. You know it, like it was your mother tongue. The silence cracked something in me. And suddenly, they came. Flashes. A hallway underground. Dim lights. A voice calling me Zari. A boy with pale eyes standing in front of me, fists raised. Don't cry, he whispered. I'll take the beating for you. Then, a hand over my mouth, a countdown. The word, river, running. I staggered back, breath gone. Kazimir didn't move. You're remembering, he said. I gripped the edge of a table. What was that? His expression didn't change, but his eyes darkened and... We shared something, you and I, long ago, in a place most people don't survive. He turned and left me there. Didn't explain, didn't ask what I remembered. He just disappeared down the hall, as if he knew I'd find the rest soon enough. And I did. Later that night, I opened the wardrobe in my room. Inside, folded between two sweaters, was a small wooden box. It wasn't locked. I lifted the lid and gasped. Nestled in silk was a tiny necklace, silver, delicate, with a sun-shaped charm in the center. I hadn't seen it in 20 years. I'd thought I lost it during a move when I was 8. I cried for days. My mother told me it probably slipped behind a dresser, but I knew this was mine. The back was scratched, just like I remembered. It had never been lost. It had been taken. I clutched it in my palm, hard enough to leave marks. More flashes. More fragments. A boy, holding my hand, sneaking food, the two of us whispering under blankets. Promise you'll find me if they take me away, I whispered. And he said, I'll always find you, Zariyah. I barely slept, and when I did, the The dreams came. The river again. Kazimir, only smaller, younger. Blood on his cheek. Me screaming. Gunfire. I woke with a jolt to real gunfire. Outside. Explosions. Muffled shouting. The crack of glass shattering down the hallway. Before I could move, my door slammed open. Kazimir stormed in. No jacket, no guards. Just fury in his eyes and a key in his hand. He tossed it to me. "They're not here to take you," he growled. "They're here to kill you, because you remember." Want to know why Kazimir reacted like that? You're not ready for what comes next. The house burned behind us. Kazimir didn't look back. Not when the glass exploded. Not when the alarm shrieked through the stone halls. And not when I stumbled after him, barefoot, shaking. Necklace clenched in my fist. He just dragged me forward, through a side door, into a black car, then into the cold, unlit night. We drove for hours. No headlights, no phones, no words. Just back roads and pine forests and the quiet rage in his jaw. Finally, sometime near dawn, we turned off a gravel road and stopped in front of a cabin buried deep in the woods. No electricity, no signal. Just walls and heat and a gun resting on the windowsill. Kazimir got out first. "This place isn't on any map," he said flatly. "No one knows it exists." I stayed in the car, because I wasn't ready. Eventually, I stepped inside. He'd already lit the fireplace, pulled out bottled water and food from an underground storage panel in the floor. Like he'd done this before. Like he expected this. I sat on the far side of the room and finally asked it. The question I couldn't outrun anymore. "Was it you?" He didn't answer at first. Just poured tea into a cracked ceramic cup. Then, "Yes." My chest caved. "You were the boy," I said. "From the shelter. From the river. The necklace." He nodded once. "I found it the day after they took you." "They?" I whispered. Kazimir's face didn't flinch. "Rescue Team International. They raided the compound, but it went sideways. Fire, smoke, gunshots. When it cleared, you were gone." He stared into the flames. "I thought you were dead." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Every broken dream, every fragment of my childhood memory, it all clicked into place like shattered glass realigning. But why didn't I remember? Kazimir looked at me then, really looked. Because he already knew. "You were found in a shipping crate," he said quietly, "near the port of Odessa." I blinked. "What?" "You were 6, barely breathing. Border Patrol flagged it during a dock sweep. 4 other kids were in there. You were the only one who lived." I couldn't speak. "You had no ID," he said. "No records. The woman who took you in, she wasn't your mother. She was your handler." I shot up from the chair. "You're lying." Kazimir didn't move. "Check the file. Your adoption isn't legal. Your real name isn't even on the birth certificate." I backed into the corner, hands trembling. My whole life built on a lie. "What was my name?" I asked. He shook his head. "They erased it. You were labeled Jane Doe, black female, age approx. 6. After that, they made something up." I dropped to the floor. I didn't cry, I couldn't. There wasn't room for grief in a place like this. Only survival. And then, like a match flicked in darkness, another memory sparked. We were kids, hiding under a staircase, a cracked flashlight between us, a stick of chalk, a slab of broken concrete. Kazimir whispered a word in my ear. Shestiorka. Then Bariga. Then Jamur. Each time he made me repeat it. Each time he smiled when I got it right. I laughed. What are we saying? He leaned close. It's Fenya, he whispered. Our secret language. So the bad ones don't understand. Back in the cabin, I looked up at him. You taught me, I said. You taught me Fenya. Kazimir gave a single nod. You remembered. The cipher wasn't just a message. It was a map, a warning, a trap. But mostly, it was ours. Kazimir spread the smuggled ledger across the cabin table, page after brittle page of slanted handwriting, encrypted scribbles and symbols that looked like nothing, unless you knew what to look for. And I did. The moment I saw the second page, my stomach flipped. Wait, I whispered. That's not Russian. Kazimir looked at me. What is it? I traced the lines with my finger. It's a mashup. Fenya base, but layered with Ukrainian slang. And then I paused. What? He asked. I swallowed. It's our old code, I said. The one we made as kids. We'd created it to confuse adults in the shelter, to talk in front of guards without them knowing. Simple things back then. Blue meant danger. Triangle meant food. River meant escape. Now, someone had buried that same code inside a Bratva ledger, and they'd known we'd find it. Kazimir stood beside me, close. Too close. His voice was quiet. Can you read it? I nodded slowly. Some of it, but not alone. We worked in silence. Each page peeled back a layer of something ugly. Shipment routes masked as fairy tale symbols. Names we thought were allies, marked with currency symbols. Dates we recognized from meetings Kazimir had personally attended. And then, something worse. A string of entries I'd written backward. I held the page to the firelight and read the translation aloud. Zid to be traded. Buyer confirmed. Protected memory asset. Remove handler if obstructed. I looked up. Kazimir's jaw was tight. He already knew what I was about to ask. Someone in your circle, I whispered. Planned to sell me. He nodded once. No one outside this cabin sees this ledger. Not until we know who. The room felt colder. My hands shook as I flipped to the next entry. It listed a location, coordinates in Chechnya, and a word scratched in the margins, Yushny Kamen. I translated without thinking. Southern stone. Kazimir's eyes went sharp. That is the legend. The stash from the Second Chechen War. Diamonds, weapons, files. Everyone thought it was a myth. It's not, I said. Someone thinks I know where it is. The room went silent. The fire cracked. And between us, something else burned. He stepped closer. Not forcefully. Not like before. This time, slow. Controlled. His voice was low. You don't remember everything, but your mind does. And you think I'll just wake up one day, knowing where this treasure is? His gaze dropped to my lips. No, I think you already do. And then he kissed me. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't staged. It was soft, familiar, unfinished, like something he'd waited his whole life to continue. But I pulled back, because I didn't know if I was being loved or handled. Don't, I whispered. Kazimir searched my eyes. Why? Because I don't know if this is real, or if I'm still an asset. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached for my hand, slowly, like asking permission. When I didn't pull away, he turned it palm up and traced the scar on my wrist, the one I got from the shipping crate. I have the same one, he said quietly. He rolled up his sleeve. There, a jagged line across his forearm, same angle, same width. I got mine the night they took you, he said, clawing through the rubble, looking for you. My throat tightened. I didn't find you, he continued. But I found this. He pulled the necklace from his pocket. My necklace. And I swore I'd never stop looking. I stared at the scars, his and mine like matching wounds across time. You're not an asset, Zariyah, he said. His voice cracked, just barely. You're the only thing I never let myself forget. I didn't kiss him, not yet, but I didn't let go of his hand either. I turned back to the pages, heart still pounding. Another entry, scrawled across the bottom in jagged English, a name, Marcus D. I froze. The air left the room. No, I whispered. It couldn't be. I read it again. Marcus D., Chicago buyer. Paid in advance. Hold until cleared. Kazimir moved beside me. Who is he? My hands were ice. My ex, I said, the one I filed the restraining order against. Kazimir's face darkened. He wasn't just a monster, I said. My voice shook. He was a buyer, and someone had promised him I was for sale. Kazimir pulled out his phone, typed something, hit send, then looked at me. What did you just do? I asked. Sent his name to my cleaner in Chicago, he said flatly. Marcus won't see morning. I should have felt horror, guilt, something. But all I felt was relief. Kazimir leaned closer. No one who tried to own you gets to breathe. Not while I'm alive. And for the first time since I'd remembered him, I believed I was safe. We stayed in the cabin for 3 more days. Not because it was safe, but because we needed time. Time to decode the rest of the ledger. Time to plan. Time to remember. On the second night, I found Kazimir outside, standing in the snow, shirtless, barefoot. Like the cold didn't touch him. What are you doing? I called from the doorway. He didn't turn. Clearing my head. I stepped into the cold. By freezing to death? He smiled, barely. Old habit. From the shelter. When things got bad, I'd sneak outside. Let the cold remind me I was still alive. I stood beside him, silent. After a long moment, he spoke. I used to dream about you, he said, every night for years. Same dream. You'd be running through the forest, calling my name. and I'd wake up before I could reach you. I looked at him. I had the same dream. His jaw tightened. I thought I failed you. You didn't, I said. You found me. He finally looked at me, not fast enough. I reached for his hand. This time, I didn't hesitate. Fast enough, I whispered. He pulled me into him, not a kiss, but an embrace. Solid, warm, desperate. Like he'd been holding his breath for 20 years and finally exhaled. And I let myself break. Just for a moment. Just enough to feel human again. That night, I didn't sleep. Not because I couldn't, but because I didn't dare. At 3:14 a.m., a single message flashed across the screen of Kazimir's burner phone. It wasn't in Russian. It wasn't in English. It was Fenya. Just one line. She's with you. For now. Kazimir cursed under his breath and stood. We have a mole, he said. Everything changed in that moment. The cabin was no longer safe. I was no longer hidden, and whatever time we had to figure this out, it had just run out. I never saw the needle. One moment I was in the cabin, going over the ledger again. The next, darkness folded over me like a shroud. No struggle, no warning, just a pinch on my neck, and silence. I woke up in chains, cold air, a concrete floor, diesel stench and a woman crying softly in the dark. My wrists were zip-tied, ankles shackled. A bruise throbbed under my ear where the tranquilizer must have hit. My head lolled to the side, and that's when I saw him. Leonid, the man with the scar, Kazimir's second. The one who once held a door open for me like I was royalty. Now he stood behind a glass partition, sipping tea and talking into a headset like this was just business. Because to him, it was. The room was bare, except for cages, 6 of them. Each one holding a woman with hollow eyes and bloodied lips. All silent, all broken, except me. I sat up slowly. Where are we? I croaked. No one answered. Then one of them, a girl no older than 17, lifted her head and just enough to whisper, "Don't speak, cameras." Her Russian was clipped, provincial, but I understood every word. I waited. Hours passed. At one point, guards came in with branded water bottles and plastic-wrapped protein bars. They didn't make eye contact. Just dropped the food and left. When the lights flickered, I realized why. This wasn't a prison. It was a stage. Through the bars, I saw a white curtain. Beyond that, voices, men, laughter, clinking glasses and staccato bidding. They were already selling girls, and I was next. But not just next. Special. I heard Leonid's voice through the wall. Yes. Confirmed. Codenamed the Fenya girl. Fluent. Untouched. Believed to hold legacy intel from the Odessa network. The response was static. Then a number was named. A 7-figure bid. I leaned my head against the metal bar. Kazimir's own lieutenant had sold me. Not because I was weak, but because I knew too much, and someone wanted to own that knowledge. But I didn't grow up soft. I wasn't just a survivor. I was a code. And I knew how to break one. I shifted closer to the girl in the next cage. She wouldn't look at me, but I didn't need her to. I tapped once on the wall, then again and again. A sequence. Fenya. Prison-style rhythm. The kind of code Kazimir and I used when we were kids, hiding under staircases. Tap. Pause. Tap. Tap. Fight. She blinked, waited, then tapped back. Now? I smiled. Soon. I counted the guards. 4 on rotation, 1 at the hallway post. Cameras in every corner, but none above the cages. The girl's hands were thinner than mine. She slipped through the back of her cage and palmed the lock on mine. Click. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. The lights dimmed again. Another girl was dragged toward the stage. The others didn't look up, but I did, because I wasn't staying. 2 minutes later, the alarm went off. 1 guard hit the floor with a broken neck. Another screamed as the girl Elena stabbed him with his own baton. I bolted, barefoot, through the hallway, blood on my arms, metal in my mouth, heart pounding. Sirens, chaos, screams in 3 languages, Leonid's voice screaming orders. Then, gunfire, and something heavier. Kazimir. He didn't just storm the auction, he annihilated it. I saw him through the smoke, 2 black-coated enforcers flanking him, both covered in blood. He moved like a storm, controlled, efficient, silent. Each bidder that tried to run, dropped. Each handler who raised a weapon, dead before the safety was off. He didn't hesitate, didn't ask. He just executed. And then he saw me. Our eyes locked through a haze of dust and fury. He crossed the floor in seconds, grabbed my face, checked my pulse. You're bleeding. I'm fine. Who did this? He growled. I didn't answer. I didn't have to, because Leonid stumbled out from the shadows, bleeding from a shoulder graze. His face was pale, but not with fear, with disbelief, like he hadn't expected Kazimir to come for me. You? Kazimir said. His voice was lethal. Leonid opened his mouth to lie. I moved first. I grabbed the guard's gun from the floor, turned it and pointed it straight at Leonid's skull. His eyes widened. Kazimir didn't move to stop me. He stepped back and nodded. Leonid begged, pleaded, offered names, numbers, files. I can help you, he gasped. I stared at him. This was the man who tried to sell me to the highest bidder. The one who fed women like me into rooms filled with monsters, and smiled while he did it. I didn't flinch, because the girl I was would have run. But the woman I am now, I pulled the trigger. The first bullet didn't make a sound, at least not to me. Just a click. A flash. A man falling. The second was louder. The third, final. Then silence. Just the barrel, warm in my hand. The blood on my shoes. The taste of something metallic I couldn't swallow. I had pulled the trigger. No one said a word. The guards stepped back. The buyers lay in pieces. Kazimir just watched me like he was waiting for me to break. But I didn't. Not yet. I handed him the gun and walked out. The forest was cold, clean, and the snow didn't ask questions. I dropped to my knees just beyond the tree line. And finally, I let myself feel it. The fear, The rage. The little girl who had always run. I hadn't just killed a man. I'd executed the piece of my life that still believed I was small. Kazimir found me 20 minutes later, boots crunching through the frost. He didn't kneel. He didn't console. He just stood there, waiting. Finally, I looked up. "I'm not sorry," I said. "Good," he replied. "You shouldn't be." "I thought I'd feel different," I whispered. "Like guilty or broken." He crouched down, eye level. "You feel powerful," he said. "And that scares you?" I nodded. He reached out, brushed a tear I didn't know I'd shed. "That wasn't murder, Zariyah. That was justice. And you've finally remembered who you are." "Who am I?" I asked. He exhaled like he'd been waiting years to answer. "Not just a survivor. You're Bratva. Your blood." He stood, extended his hand, and when I took it, I wasn't the same woman who walked into that ballroom. We didn't return to the cabin. It was compromised. Instead, we crossed into Estonia using papers he'd forged months ago, like he'd known this moment was coming. At a safe house on the outskirts of Tallinn. Kazimir sat me down and opened a sealed folder I hadn't seen before. Inside, 3 things. A black and white photo, a family tree, and a death certificate. The photo was old, grainy. A tall man with a square jaw and laugh lines around his eyes knelt beside a little girl. Me. In the corner, the date, 1999. The name typed beneath it sent a chill through me. Kazimir Volkov. Kazimir's voice was steady. He was my uncle, my father's younger brother. But most of all, he was your father. I shook my head. "No, that can't be." He slid the family tree forward. My name was at the bottom, written in red ink, circled. "Your mother died giving birth. Your father raised you until he couldn't anymore. What happened to him?" Kazimir looked me in the eyes. "He was assassinated by Anton Vashenko's crew. You were 5. You were there." I recoiled. "No." He nodded once. "You saw it. That's why they took you. You were the last witness." My memories started crawling back. Not all at once, but impulses. Blood on a staircase. My father yelling in a language I only half understood. A man with yellow teeth. A gun. My hand over my mouth. Then, the crate. Dark. Rotting. Suffocating. Kazimir's voice broke through it. "Your mind buried it to survive." I gripped the edge of the table. "I was his daughter," I whispered. "Why didn't anyone come for me?" Kazimir looked down. "I knew," he said. "Or, I suspected." My breath caught. "Then why didn't you find me?" His answer cut through me. "Because I couldn't protect you." He leaned forward, voice low. "Back then, I was a soldier. No power, no reach. If I found you before I could keep you safe, they would have killed you again," as he swallowed. "I had to climb high enough to burn the world down if anyone touched you." He looked at me, eyes hollow. "Now I can." There was a long silence. I couldn't speak, could barely breathe. Because a piece of me, The little girl who had always felt disposable was finally being seen. Not just as a victim, but as a legacy. That night, Kazimir gave me something else. A small brass key, worn, cold. "Your father left it with my uncle," he said. "Told him to give it to you if you were ever found." "What does it open?" Kazimir held up a photo of a vault. "Zurich, Bank für Europa. Deposit box, the 317. 2 days later, we were in Switzerland. The air was cleaner, the streets quieter. But I felt louder than I'd ever been. Inside the vault chamber, the clerk opened the box and stepped back. But the moment I saw inside, my blood froze. The box was empty. No envelope, no diamonds, nothing. Kazimir's hand went to his weapon. "What is this?" The clerk stammered. I don't understand. The records show..." Then I saw it. A false bottom. Barely visible unless you knew what to look for. I pressed the corner. Click. The bottom panel slid away. And there it was. A worn envelope. A velvet pouch. And something else. A small black recorder. The kind used in interrogations. I picked it up. Hit play. Static. Then a voice. My father's voice. "Zariyah, if you're hearing this, it means I'm gone. And it means you're finally ready." I gripped the recorder so hard my knuckles went white. "They will tell you I was a criminal. A monster. Maybe I was. But everything I did to protect you. To give you a legacy worth fighting for." His voice cracked. "You are not broken, Dochka. You are a weapon. And when the time comes, you will know exactly what to do." The recording ended. I looked at Kazimir. His face was unreadable. But I knew. This wasn't just an inheritance. It was an activation. I opened the pouch. Diamonds. Uncut. Raw. Enough to buy a small country. But I barely looked at them because the envelope was heavier. And inside it, a letter. The handwriting was steady. Russian script. Slanted to the left. I didn't need a translator. Because it was written to me, to my daughter, Kazimir Volkov. "If you're reading this, it means I failed to protect you. But it also means you survived. They tried to erase our name, our history, our language. But I know you. And I know you would never forget who you are. The blood in your veins was built for more than hiding. It was built for leading, for vengeance, for legacy. You are not lost. You are not broken. You are Bratva. And no one who wronged you will escape the storm you become. With all my love, always, Papa." I didn't cry, not this time. Instead, I stood, looked Kazimir in the eye, and said, "They tried to bury me, but I remembered. I turned back to the vault, and that's when I saw it. Tucked behind the envelope was a folded sheet. Old, stiff with time, but unmistakable. A list. I opened it slowly. 15 names. Each one marked with a symbol. Some crossed out. Most still waiting. And at the very bottom, written in different ink, ZA. To be activated if bloodline is confirmed. I stared at the initials. Zariyah Amari. No. Kazimir Volkov. Kazimir stepped beside me. What is it? I folded the list as slowly, carefully, and whispered, targets. A beat passed. Then I looked him dead in the eye and asked, how fast can you get me a gun? If you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe now, or this might be the last time you'll see these amazing stories. Because the next part, Zariyah doesn't wait for justice. She hunts it.